This video is the next in the Historic Ordnance series. It's going to be on two mines that are extremely close. There's only just minor differences between the two of them. It's going to be on the VS50 and also the TS50 anti-personnel mines. These are Italian anti-personnel mines. They fall in the category of toe poppers. This here is just a replica that I talked to someone who had a 3D printer. He made it for me. It does not have all the features you need for a training mine, but it will be more than sufficient for this video. Now, some of the specifics on both of the mines. Diameter is 3.5 inches. The height from the bottom to the top of the pressure plate is 1 3/4 inches. The weight of the VS50 is 6.5 ounces, of which the explosive filler is 1.5 ounces of RDX. And the RDX filler inside these is stabilized inside paraffin wax. Now, the reason they did that, it makes it safer to handle the mine. But there is an issue with the wax that as these mines get really hot, the wax starts to melt, it destabilizes, and it will actually gas off. And the U.S. Army Engineer Center at Fort Leonard Wood has found that the weight of the mines does go down dramatically as that paraffin wax basically melts away and evaporates. Now, both mines, for colorations, they were made by the Italians in sand color, OD green, and kind of a light green. The VS50 has a black rubberized or neoprene pressure pad here on the top. The TS50, the pressure pad is the same color as the body, and also across the top, stenciled into or etched into the pressure plate, it says TS50. Differences between the two mines, other than that, the weight on the TS50 is a little bit less because of the explosive filler is a different type of filler, and there's not as much of it compared to the VS50. These entered production in 1985. The company that made them no longer exists, so officially the production of these mines in Italy is long since over and has been for close to 30 years. But these mines are made in other countries. Sweden is producing a licensed copy of it, which would be the VS50. Egypt is making a copy known as the T79. Iran is making a copy known as the YMIB. Singapore also makes a copy known as the SPM1. In appearance, they're supposed to be the same. There's no markings on these mines to let you know which version it is. At least no reference I could come across saying that there's any markings on these mines. Now, the VS50 and the TS50 are both blast resistant. So what that means is an explosion can happen nearby, but it won't necessarily set off the mine unless the explosion is directly on the mine. That has to do with the way that these are set up internally. Right underneath the pressure plate here is an air-filled bladder. Now, in order to dissipate that bladder and disarm and arm the mine, you have to place 22 pounds of pressure on the pressure plate, continuous downward pressure. That will then disperse the air from that bladder, then allowing the striker with the firing pin on it to drop down into place directly over the top of the detonator. And then that continued pressure will force it into the detonator, setting it off. The amount of time that pressure has to be applied is a minimum of 1/10 of a second, which is longer than the amount of time from the force exerted from a blast. from, say, a MICLIC, a mine clearing line charge. These mines are waterproof. They are not buoyant. They can be placed in water up to 1 meter deep, and they're not going to float away. But obviously, if there's a strong current in the water, it will push the mine away over time. In which case, you'd probably want to anchor it down somehow, placing some rocks around it, or tying it to a stake or to a little platform underneath that gives it some extra weight to hold it in. Now, there is a booby trap version of this that looks exactly like these mines. It is the VS50 AR. It was made by the same company. The AR, the pressure plate on top, is fake. It's not pressure activated. It's actually activated by a mercury tilt switch inside the mine. It's designed so that as the deminer comes in to pick it up, to remove it, well, as the deminer's picking it up, tilts it just a little bit, that mercury switch sets off the mine in the miner's hand, taking off the hand and potentially a good chunk of the lower arm. How you tell the difference between a VS50 and a VS50 AR. When I look through some explosive ordnance disposable materials online, the AR around here below the pressure plate on the top of the mine, it's textured. And from the drawings, it looks like it's almost sand impregnated paint is around there. Where the VS50, it's more of a smooth or ribbed around the pressure plate. That's how you tell the difference when it's out in the field. When they're in storage, you come across them that have not been emplaced. The VS50 and the TS50 have red safety pins, blue shipping plug on the bottom. The AR, both of those are orange in color. The TS50, the VS50, and the VS50 AR all take the M41 detonator. Had to double check that. These mines are incredibly low metallic. The only metal inside them is a firing pin, which is about as thick as a small piece of tripwire, and the percussion cap on the detonator, which is made out of either copper or brass. Both the firing pin and the percussion cap are non-detectable because they are non-ferrous. So metal detectors would scan right over the top, not pick up these mines. Newer metal detectors like the PSS14, you could potentially pick these up, but no guarantee. Later in the production run, before it ceased, the company making them did have the option that if the customer wanted, they could install a little metal disc right in here underneath the pressure plate, increasing its possibility of being detected by a metal detector. But that metal disc was extremely small, so even then, no guarantees. These mines were used very heavily across the Middle East and North Africa. And I have a suspicion that they're going to end up getting used across Asia also because of being manufactured in Singapore. These mines also did make an appearance in Bosnia. Not in a huge amount, but there was quite a few of them that did appear there during the Civil War. Now, the emplacement steps on these mines, the VS50 and the TS50. First is obviously inspect an inventory. When you get the mine, there's going to be a protective cap over the top here protecting the pressure plate. I could not find a good picture of it, and obviously the replica didn't come with it. You're going to inspect the mine, make sure it's not damaged. These ribs on the outside here, this is just to protect the outside, try to strengthen it, cut down on the possibility of getting damaged during transport. You're also going to check that the safety pin is in place. And I'll show you the picture here of the safety pins. There's two general styles. This is a style that was on the version of the mine that was intended to be helicopter delivered, but you could still hand and place this version. And this is the type of safety pin that was on the hand and placed version. But there was a note, you can still employ this version from a helicopter also. As you see, red pieces of plastic, not a lot to them, so they can break fairly easily. Now you're going to want to go through, after you visually inspect the mine, the body, you're going to want to inspect the detonator well. You're going to unscrew the blue plastic shipping plug and look down inside. If there's any debris inside there, hold it like so and just tap your palms together, trying to dislodge the debris. You see something fall out, double check inside, make sure everything looks fine, reinstall the shipping plug, set it down, take the protective cover off, and it looks like there's two little latches on the sides of the protective cover. Pop those, lift the cover up, check to make sure that the pressure plate's just fine. Go through, inspect the detonator, just make sure it hasn't been crushed or already set off. If everything's good to go, put the cover back on, bag everything up, box it up, bring it with you to the emplacement site. I could not find any information as to how many of these mines came in a shipping crate from the factory. Now we get to the emplacement site. It could be a location we want to put in an ambush. It could be that we're conducting a raid, and as we're leaving the raid site, we want to cut down the possibility of being pursued. We're going to leave some mines behind us. First, you're going to prep the spot the mine's going to go in at. If you're going to surface lay it, maybe you're just going to make a little pocket in the vegetation that you can just drop this down inside and cover it up. If you're going to bury this, you're going to dig a hole so that the pressure plate is even with the ground or a little bit above the ground. Once you got the hole, you make sure it's nice and compact on the bottom, that the mine's not just going to get pressed down into the soil, down into the mud. You're then going to arm your mine. First thing you're going to do, flip it over, remove the shipping plug, remove the plastic shipping plug, and you're going to install the M41 detonator. Color of the M41 detonator is either going to be sand, green, or apparently some of them were manufactured in gray for some reason. Screw that into the detonator well. Torque it down just a little. You don't want to wrench it and snap it. Flip it back over. Take off the protective cover. Go to the side here. Take the little safety pin here out of the channel on the side of the mine, swing it downward, just rotate it downward, and then pull the pin out of the mine. At that point, the mine is armed. And I'm guessing it wouldn't be too much different than this, but instead of swinging it downward, it's just rotate. Place the mine into the hole or into the spot that you have prepared for it, and then camouflage it. If you're going to bury it, you're going to bury it only up to about here. Don't pack down dirt over the top of the pressure plate. You may toss a little bit over the top, but don't pack it in. Remember, this is an anti-personnel mine, not an anti-tank mine. And you want the soil to be kind of soft so that it's going to give as the enemy steps on it. Then take vegetation, go over the top. If you're planting this in a desert and sand, obviously cover it with a layer of sand that no one's going to see it. It said you can bury these up to a max of 2 centimeters into the ground. So I'm guessing that's about half a centimeter or so of dirt to a max of 1 centimeter of dirt over the top of the pressure plate. And then the mine is in place. Let the enemy come through, step on it, set it off. These mines, you want to emplace them in areas that the enemy is going to move through. So you're going to put it on their paths that they use on a regular basis, their lines of drift. You can employ these in protective minefields around encampments. And the Iraqis employed these in huge numbers in the first Gulf War to protect their anti-tank minefields. They did cluster minefields with this type of mine protecting the anti-tank mine in the center. They would do a just dirty pattern of say 2, 3, or 4 of these around the mine with the anti-tank mine in the center. Now, removal of the VS50 and the TS50. First off, you're going to come close to the spot where the mine is at. You're not going to go directly on it. And then you're going to go through, you're going to start clearing the area till you find the edges of the mine. Clear around it. You don't have to worry about it being potentially booby-trapped because there's no secondary fuse well. But you're going to want to hold it, check underneath to make sure if this mine has not been under your direct observation the entire time. Make sure someone has not put some type of pressure release device underneath. If the mine is clear, take it out of the hole. Take that safety pin, reinstall it into the well, turn it, put it in place, lock it back into the channel here, flip it over, unscrew the detonator, screw back in the blue plastic shipping plug, secure the detonator so that you don't lose it, flip the mine over. If you have the protective plate for going over the top, put it back over the top of the mine, lock it in on the sides. Pick up the mine, put it back in the case, set it to the side, whatever you have set up for removing it from the area, potentially reusing it or taking it to a location to be disposed of. There you go, the basics that I can find on an Italian VS50 and also TS50 anti-personnel mines. As I said, these fall into toe popper class. Just enough explosive inside them to take off your foot, maybe a little bit of your lower leg. Not much more than that. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot militia movements, always remember, essay ons.